how to improve your body's ability to recover and perform, how to stimulate your nervous system to heal, and why Manny Camara and Keiichiro Yoshida want you to embrace corporate wellness. All right. Hey ho, let's go. Hello, my legendary friends. Welcome to another spectacular Legends and Losers. I'm so glad you're joining us today. We are on a mission to hack some of the most brilliant minds in the world about how to lead a legendary lead a legendary life, design a legendary business, and be generally legendary. If you're a longtime listener to Legends and Losers, thank you so much. And if you're a new listener, thanks for checking us out. And I want to warn you, we are not your grandfather's business podcast. We are what you could think of as an authentic dialogue show. And so I'm not an interviewer. I'm not a journalist. I'm a former entrepreneur and, author, and now really just a guy trying to create a platform for dialogue around what it takes to lead a legendary business and a legendary life. And so on most shows, what you get is a professional interviewer who's got a narrative and prepared questions. And you get a guest, a high-performing person who is very media savvy, very media trained. They've been given their talking points from their PR firm, and they go out and they pitch their thing, whatever it is. And so when you and I listen to CNBC or Fortune.com or almost all business media, what we're really consuming is the narrative the interviewer wants us to get and the talking points the interviewee wants us to get. And I don't know about you, I just find that unsatisfying. The other thing we tend to get in the world of business media is all these bullshit shows and columns and posts and blogs and videos about the 4 things amazing people do before they take a shit every morning. And, if I go do these things, and there's a lot of this sort of psychobabble, leadership, personal development crapple that is completely inauthentic. And most of it is problematic crap that we've heard 1,000 times. And the reality is there aren't 7 tips to fucking anything. And so if you really want to learn, if you really want to engage, the only way we think you can is to engage in authentic dialogue with somebody who's up to something in their life. And that's what Legends and Losers is. And we also, we try to be silly and do have some fun and be a little bit ridiculous along the way. Now, today's a very important show because today is all about your well-being and the well-being of the people that you work with. On the show today, we have Manny Camara, who's one of my absolute favorite people in the world. And he is the go-to person in the San Francisco Bay Area by all the elite athletes when they get hurt and they need to recover quickly, or they're trying to optimize their body to perform. They go to Myotechnology and they go to see Manny, and I'll tell you why in a second. We're also joined today by Manny's good friend and partner, particularly in the area of corporate wellness, Keiichiro Yoshida. And Keiichiro is a Stanford MBA. He's an entrepreneur, multi-time startup advisor. And his primary area of focus is in people. He's a people person, with a focus on talent management, human development, leadership, HR, and of course, corporate wellness. Manny, and I got to warn you, you're going to hear 2 things on this episode that are going to sound foreign. One is you're going to hear this drilling noise. And that's a creation of Manny's, a product that he's created called the Myotechnology Muscle Blaster. And the theme for it is Recover Faster with the Muscle Blaster. And what you're going to hear about is this electronic device. It actually looks a lot like a drill because that's kind of what it is. And how effective a drill can be used for recovery in what Manny calls percussion therapy. And he'll explain that to you. And I will tell you, I've had a muscle blaster for several years. I can't live without it. As a matter of fact, I travel with it. The other funny thing you may hear some of on during our dialogue is my wife, Carrie, and I are lucky enough to have 6 beautiful hens. And they're like our children. They're like our pets. It turns out that chickens are every bit as good as a dog or a cat as it pertains to being a pet. They're super smart. They're super funny. They have very distinctive personalities, and they make breakfast. And so beautiful baby Beatrice likes to sit in on Legends and Losers from time to time. And so you'll hear her. All right. Manny Camara. He's the creator of the mixed method recovery system. And he's also the founder of Myo Technology in San Jose. He's been a friend of my wife's family for decades. I consider him an adopted brother. He's trained and certified in almost any method of physical training, physical development, physical therapy you can imagine. And his mission is really to enhance the athletic performance for elite and Olympic level athletes through addressing sports injuries and body mechanics issues with forward leaning approaches. And the cool thing that he's done is because he studied almost every approach to physical well-being, physical therapy, he's kind of integrated them into his own discipline. That's why he calls it mixed method recovery. He has served as the personal trainer and/or mixed method recovery therapist for members of the San Jose Fire Department, the San Jose ice skating team, many UFC fighters, particularly here in the San Francisco Bay Area, including our friend and guest Luke Rockhold. As a matter of fact, I met Luke through Manny, whose nickname also is Manny the Mechanic, if I didn't say that. He's also somebody who the San Jose Sharks go to, the San Jose Earthquake, the San Francisco 49ers, and virtually all of the kind of Olympic level athletes in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's got a huge commitment to making a difference in the world. He's been honored with the United States Army's Commander's Coin for helping soldiers recover from injuries sustained in active duty. And now, Keiichiro Yoshida and Manny Camara are on Legends and Losers. All right, so how did you guys get into the recovery business, or how should I think about your do-gooding, feel-gooding, making people bettering kind of business?
Wow, that's a lot of adjectives.
Yes. I'm going to throw a couple of nouns at that.
Maybe an adverb for 200, Alex?
Little conjunction.
Nice.
What's your function? By the way, I went to see that fucking play. You know, that Conjunction Junction Schoolhouse Rock play?
Yeah.
My nephew Finn was in that play. And going to see children perform that Conjunction Junction, What's Your Function play makes you want to tear your eyeball out with a fork. God, if I heard one more kid sing about the letter B or the number 4, fuck. It was long, let me say it that way. But I digress. How do we get into the recovery business here, boys?
Well, my journey, I started out, gosh, just as a young kid. Mom had a sore foot or sore neck. I was the go-to person, even at a young age. I always had the appreciation of being able to work on, my loved ones at home.
Were you always good with your hands, Manny?
That is a loaded question, sir.
No, I didn't. I didn't mean it as weird as it might have come across. I know I'm sitting here with a dinosaur on my lap and everything.
I know how you think, okay?
I remember talking to an orthopedic surgeon once on a surf trip, just a guy I met, and he was telling me, if you ever need orthopedic surgery, make sure your surgeon is really good with his or her hands, like a good carpenter, because that's what we're doing. We're putting your shit back together.
Right.
So you always had those strong, manipulative hands or whatever.
I think I did. Otherwise, my family, unless they're just glutton for punishment, they would always come back for more.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And that's kind of, it was in my DNA as a young kid. And from there, I, through school, I started to gear myself up, and I wanted to learn more and more about the human body and how it worked, and how to enhance its ability to function. And even as a kid, my dad, I think, used to think I was pretty weird because the veterinarian would come out to the ranch. I grew up on a ranch in the Central Valley, and I would follow the vet around because I wanted to know everything that he or she was doing. Like, wow, why are you doing that? Oh, and that. Oh, okay. And it was just, I just found it really interesting. It was piqued my interest, and then I went into emergency medical care in my last year of high school, and gosh, I started doing ride-alongs and EMT vans in the Central Valley, and after 3 months, I figured out it's not what I wanted to do, and I moved to San Jose, and I started the process of reinventing myself, and started out on a journey, one of which was, it's been colorful. It's been a lot of excitement. It's been a lot of fun. But, there was a lot of times where I would reach a certain point and really try to figure out, well, okay, this isn't exactly what I pictured this to be, and I would have to redirect. And if nothing else, the one thing that I did learn was your journey to success is not a direct and straight line. It's this zigzag, and then you finally get to a place that you feel a really great deal of fulfillment with what you're doing.
And how long did it take you to get to that place, Manny?
Oh, I'd say about 30 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Over 30 years, I just cultivated just what I wanted to do and why. And I just, even now, I'm constantly tweaking myself and my knowledge and my ability to understand or be more effective at what I do. And that's ultimately trying to help people achieve the best quality of life that they can achieve.
It's amazing to me, because I consider you a master, that someone at your level of mastery is only really having satisfaction with what you do in the more recent years.
It's a great source of satisfaction. And as far as if I were to quantify success, I feel like that I am relishing in a level of success that I never thought I ever would achieve. But it's because I love what I do, and I feel like I'm doing what I was meant to be doing in this time around. So,
as someone who's gotten to know you through your mastery and being your, what do we call? We're not patients. Are we clients, or what are we?
Yeah, clients,
friends. Yeah.
Test subjects,
guinea pigs.
Yeah, pretty much. No.
So you knew from an early age you wanted to be a healer.
I did. I just didn't know what that looked like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where that 30-year journey has brought me to, is just understanding that, just feeling like I'm where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I have to learn and stay relevant in what I want to do. Keep the mind young, and there's so much new technology and stuff coming out all the time to help people achieve a better quality of life, and just nutrition, diet, understanding intestinal permeability, how the body functions, and neuroplasticity, huge topic in the neuroscience. We used to think that it wasn't something that was so flexible, but we're finding that stimulating the nervous system in such a manner, there's particular ways you can kind of facilitate function again where they never thought that would be possible. So as much as we know, there's that other side of, there's a lot that we don't. So you always have to push the envelope and try to keep learning.
Now, Keiichiro, how did you come to be a do-gooder, a healer, an educator?
Not as storied as Manny would have described himself, purely by accident, and sat behind a microscope for several years and realized that there has to be something more. Again, by pure happenstance, my mother had gotten sick. And
what do you mean you sat behind a microscope? You were just studying? Or?
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of school here and there, but mostly research, and back east, and kind of following my pre-guided tour of what I was supposed to be. growing up.
Could you say a little bit about what do you mean by a pre-guided tour?
Sure.
Did you have any helicopter parenting going on, or any tiger moms, or
I did.
monster dads,
Yes.
or monster truck dads? Or
I had a lion dad. As a first generation immigrant to the United States, there was a very focused effort towards what my path was supposed to be. So, and being in front of people and being kind of a social, integrated, a career path was not in the cards for me. At least that's not how I was raised. So I discovered
what was in the cards.
Gosh, I guess I was supposed to be a doctor, a lawyer, a researcher like my father, something like that.
What kind of research does your dad do?
He's an organic chemist.
Oh yeah, well, like everyone's dad. I don't even know what the fuck that means. Organic chemist. Well, that means he works on chemical assignments that were never tested on GMOs. Okay.
There you go. Yes. Yes. Yeah. He was here at the first Silicon Valley boom and talked often about it with an age-old company called Bell Laboratories. So yeah. So I guess, again, my path just completely by happenstance. My mother got sick. I left that industry, went into industrial engineering, hated it, was measuring tensile strength of coal slates for 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. And a buddy of mine said, "Hey, do you want to do some coaching?" I said, anything to get me out of this horrific experience. And I went down to the local YMCA and started coaching a little bit. And so
what kind of coaching originally?
Yeah, so I was a swim coach. Yeah. So I ended up swimming a little bit in college and just finding my passion in the water. And so I ended up coaching.
What was it about swim coaching?
What was it about swim coaching? I think for me, it was being able to see individuals grow and actually plan out a course of progression for them and goal setting and really try to focus on, what is their best version of themselves going to be, and having a hand in hoping to develop that. So that really intrigued me. And I think kind of the career path after that evolved from starting from there and coaching and working with people as a full-time profession, and then finally realizing that that's something that I want to do. So
not so much science and math, but human beings.
Right, the science of human beings.
Yeah, although there's a scientific component to what both you guys do around the body.
Absolutely.
Maybe not what your lion dad was originally thinking.
Yes.
Was it tough? No. Maybe if I turned my fucking mic on. What was it? Was it tough to buck sort of the expectations of your parents and strike out on your own path?
I think it was, only because of whatever predestined, pre-ingrained philosophy was within me. Grew up in a very traditionalist Japanese household, so my heritage played a huge role in who I was and how I interacted with people even. So my later life, in terms of identifying and understanding different cultures, both from a diversity standpoint as well as how organizational culture moves and shifts, really played a huge role early on in my life.
It really, the first generation of immigrants, it's a fascinating dynamic that seems to play out over and over. I mean, my family is originally from Scotland. A grandfather in World War II, get married shortly after the war, no jobs, moved to Canada, right, as my mom's turning 2. And so I guess technically I'm second generation Canadian, now American, but too close enough for rock and roll. And you there is this immigrant thing, right? In my case, grandparents sacrificed to come from the motherland to create a better opportunity. And there is a sense of you gotta cash in the ticket that they bought for us, right? Is that how it was for you?
Yeah, almost this. You have a responsibility to be successful.
Yeah. I don't know if it was ever quite put to me like that. I'm not sure. and I don't mean any disrespect, but I'm not sure my mom was as sophisticated as that, but it was more like, you better not be a bum.
That's right.
You
That's
don't get
right.
to be a bum. And it's funny, of course I say that to kids today. It's like, we don't raise any bums around here. Okay. Beatrice agrees. No bums, eh, BB? And so how did you guys get together?
Well, want to explain that?
You go ahead, man.
Well, Keiichiro and John Martin, a really dear friend of mine that's an engineer that's worked on multiple projects and product ideas that I have had, and he has had, and John had as well. We partnered up on some of these different products. John and Keiichiro had a background. That's how I met Keiichiro, was through John. And then Keiichiro was brought into a little network of people that were working on a lot of different medical-based products. And now we have kind of broken off on our own to a certain degree and working with this corporate wellness program. And I'm now joining one of Keiichiro's teams to head off on this new journey, which is really exciting.
So yeah, let's talk about this a little. I find it fascinating in the era of, companies like Facebook build these campuses that look a lot like Disney World. And, we've gone from free popcorn and bring your dog to work to like full on, it's a complete other world, and they'll like do your laundry. And it just, and I just look at it and go, yeah, here's our morale improvement program. Improve your fucking morale or you're fired, right? Like that's sort of the world that I know and grew up in, so to speak. And so I'll never forget the first time I went to that Facebook campus, and it really does look like Disney World, and like Wednesday's movie night, and there's 15 different restaurants, and everything's fucking free, and there's masseuses everywhere, and yeah, see, Beatrice doesn't recognize any of it either. And so I guess I'm leading up to something here, which is it seems like we're in a whole new era of the way companies think about their employees and wellness. I don't know, you guys tell me, but it seems like Keiichiro, wellness is a huge area that these companies are turning to you for now. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, definitely. I think wellness and well-being, I think, are sometimes get intermingled, unfortunately. And the concept of having someone perform at their best and actually feel as if they are a contributor to the organization, with new ideas, new feedback, or maybe even different feedback than what's traditionally used to. And most importantly, just having a voice within the organization. I think that really makes the experience in being in the workforce today that much different. And the concept of well-being or wellness within the workplace plays a huge hand in that. If you're healthy as a human being in your body, you tend to perform much better behind your desk or in front of your desk or in front of colleagues, and you have more energy. There's various levels of information that can be gleaned from scientifically to support the concept of wellness. The whole idea is, in organizations, a lot of these companies decide that, we're going to just drop a formula in and it applies to everyone. And everyone can be successful in this one formula, but there's no follow-up, there's no follow-through. And so the best way in our mind to develop a process is to really cultivate from within. So grab an individual, allow them to really focus on what's going to allow them to be healthy, what's going to allow them to feel fulfilled, and hopefully spread that charisma around.
And so what are these programs? I mean, you guys have been hired to come into some of the leading companies in Silicon Valley to do this stuff. So if I'm an employee at, I don't know if you want me to mention a company, but if I'm an employee at one of these very well-known Silicon Valley companies that you guys are working with, and I show up at one of your workshop, seminar, lunch and learn, show and tell,
check.
Show me yours, I'll show you mine. But when I show up at one of these events that you guys put on at one of these companies, what happens?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It starts with an educational format, so a learning platform, either be a workshop or a seminar, and we focus on trying to build out a community within those individuals or within that company, from the attendees first. So really kind of concept, and driving the idea of allowing these individuals to feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves, and that it can be
So is it
adoptable.
like connecting them to a company mission, or?
It's part of that,
Yeah.
but just starting from wellness itself.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a lot easier to work out on a daily basis, or at least a semi-frequent basis, if you have a buddy to do it with.
Got it. So earlier we were talking about how one of these companies you guys were involved with built. Did you tell the story about the company with the survey? You tell that story, because that's
Sure.
a great story. Because this is so fucking true. And the thing I found fascinating is, and now companies are trying to do something about it. So anyway, share us the story.
So the story is that a rather large Fortune-based company came into Cupertino, opened up a brand new headquarters in a building. And one of the first things they did was they deployed a satisfaction or feedback survey to all their employees, of which they traditionally got their 10 to 20% feedback return.
Because that way, when they do nothing that employees ask them for, at least the employees think, well, they sent out a survey.
Absolutely.
Isn't that the philosophy? Is that HR strategy 101 here?
Yes. The new HR. Yep. So the two elements that were asked to be provided in this new building was a cafe and a workout center. So once the building opened, they had onboarded within the first week about 800 of their employees, of a facility hosting office space of around 5,000. So 800 during the first week was a great onboarding session. And then very quickly what ended up happening was, over the period of the first 3 months, they ended up having an average of 3 people come in and do a workout per week.
All numbers.
Beatrice looks like she might be a little warm, so I just poured some water for her, Keiichiro. I mean, come on, this happens every time you sit down and talk to somebody about your career, doesn't it? She doesn't appear to want any water, so it's okay. Never mind the crazy man and his pretty little dinosaur.
Beautiful dinosaur. So
is she pretty?
That's that's the story.
And so I love there's this gap between what we want to do and what we do, right? Like I've often said there's only 2 problems in life: knowing what to do and doing it. And it seems like more often than not, the big problem is the doing it one, right? So what do I do if I'm a CEO or an employer or executive, head HR, whatever it is, and my employees are telling me, hey, I want to be fit and all that, and so I go out and I actually build the fucking employees the gym they fucking ask for, and that's just not inexpensive, right?
That's right.
And then the fucking employees don't go.
Yep.
So how do you get them to go and actually execute on what they said they wanted and what I spent all this time and money and office space building for them?
That's right. And hopefully that's the problem that we're trying to solve, is that it starts from within, and that the organization has to adopt that level of culture that wellness or people's well-being is important enough to continue managing and maintaining that investment. The end story is that when they came up to a decision where they had to expand because their workforce was expanding, they ran out of space within the facility. The executives came together and made a decision. Hey, what's the place that's least utilized that we can take away and add more workspace? And that was the gym.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so, that's very cool. And so you put together programs to encourage people and to make sure they actually go and to develop buddies and be more clear about what is it you do with it?
That's about it. Yeah. I mean, our focus is on really adopting to a culture that individuals want and the corporation wants, and creating a process where individuals can feel successful within the organization that they're part of.
And not to sound as cheeky as this might sound, but does it work?
Yeah, it does, because we live in an age where there's mixed generational workforces, and so mixed idealisms in terms of how they should work and how they should perform. millennials have been known to want to attach to a greater mission and to a greater concept or belief beyond themselves. So creating that atmosphere where there's a learning space that can provide those kind of idealisms and nurture them and cultivate them, and so that the organization can foster those ideals is really important. So earlier we talked about transparency, and this is one way to be able to integrate that transparency within the operation.
The funny thing about that to me is that so, Beatrice? Yeah, I know, my love. I actually think it's always been true. Maybe the millennials are more direct about it and more upfront about it, which I think is very cool. But my whole working experience, for me personally and for the people that I've worked with, they've wanted to feel like they're on a mission. They've wanted to feel like what they're doing matters. They've wanted to feel like they're contributing. They wanted to feel like they were working on really big problems that if they were able to solve, that would mean good things in their marketplace, in the world. Those are things that don't sound new to me. It maybe is new that we're acknowledging that these are human desires, that we're not just robots that show up at work and go, right? Or is there more to it than that? Is there a new kind of awakening about wellness at work?
No, I think much like our Atari game recently, I think you hit the nail on the head.
How legendary is it to play 1981 Atari?
Yeah, okay.
Right?
That's right.
That thing's a time machine, right? I think, Manny, were you beating all of us at Space Invaders?
Oh, no. I was the guy at the end. Yeah, I kept on getting everyone killed, including myself. But I was having a good time.
And so, it's interesting. I'm reminded a little bit. We, as I was mentioning a little bit earlier, had a fascinating dialogue with SEAL Teams 3 Commander Mark Devine, actually twice. And in our second dialogue, he was talking about how he doesn't think you can be a corporate leader today, a business leader today, unless you're a complete leader. Mind, body, spirit, obviously intellect. And I asked him specifically on the physical one, and he said, yeah, I don't think you get to be a successful CEO or what have you if you're not physically fit. What's your Beatrice agrees clearly. What's your reaction to that? I found it a fascinating discussion.
I think it's absolutely true. I think if you don't have this, the reason those three components work together, mind, body, spirit, is because if you're missing one, then there's something intricately missing in terms of your overall output and your overall performance and your overall mindset to connect to the organization that you're serving. Mm-hmm. So I think in our impression, it's so vitally important that wellness and well-being is a core feature and function of what we're doing.
Yeah.
And as a leader in any program that, we're evangelizing health and wellness and balance in one's life, you have to lead by example. It's like if you're going to walk the walk, you need to walk it yourself before you can evangelize it or share it with someone else or expect it to work for someone else. So yeah, it starts at the top. I always use myself as an example, even in my own practice. I've had so many injuries. I have 3 bulging discs in my lumbar spine, but yet I can go out and I can run bleachers and crawl 450 yards working my core. And people wonder, well, how on earth can you do that? It's because that I've had the commitment and the drive to strengthen my body, that despite its shortcomings, despite its injuries, it'll still function at an optimal level. So if I'm going to expect someone to do their exercises and to work on their health, I have to be willing to do that for myself. That was the point I wanted to make.
Yeah. You as my friend and Legends and Losers guest, Matt Atkinson, Matty A, says, your audio has to, or your video has to match your audio.
Good point.
Yeah, and it's funny, ever since, I've, of course, my whole life I've heard you got to walk your talk and talk your walk and all that. But when he said it that way, it just that slight twist on an old expression, it made me think. And ever since then, I'm thinking, sometimes my fucking video doesn't match my audio. Fuck, I gotta get these things lined up, or I'm just an asshole. So, Manny, how did you're such an incredible innovator, category designer. I explain what you do to people, and it's completely unique. So could you explain what is mixed method recovery?
The mixed method recovery system, that is something that I have worked on for many years, and it was all about applying the right therapy or modality to that particular individual's circumstances, whether their injury is acute, something that happened right away, or just recently, or chronic, something that they've been dealing with for months, years. You find a blend of therapies and re-education exercises that fit their particular given circumstances.
And how did you figure out like massage and chiropractic and oxygen? And of course, I want to talk to you guys today about percussion. Because the first time you took this thing that looks like, I don't know, a drill and a sex toy had a baby and wanted to poke it at me, I wasn't quite sure what you had in mind. But before we get to the specifics, how did you move from being a massage therapist to having to pull in all these other disciplines?
Well, I think it first started when I was in emergency medical care and really wanting to be at a much deeper level, wanted to understand the body and its recovery systems, and coming to the realization that as an EMT, it wasn't going to happen because it was all reactive. You show up at an accident site, you're pulling someone out of a car, you're stabilizing them, and then you're getting them to the hospital. There's nothing preventative or educational about that. You're just saving lives. And then when I moved to San Jose in '83, that's when I really started to dig in and really figure out.
Where did you move to San Jose from?
From Los Banos was my hometown. Yeah. Grew up on a ranch there, and it's a very different.
What did you grow on the ranch?
Well, we had dairy cows,
yeah,
and we had apricots. There were almonds as well. My brother-in-law Joe and my sister Patsy had their almond and apricot orchard, so I would work there in the summertime, driving tractors, usually breaking shit and getting in trouble. But for the most part, I survived. Which, by the way, to your comment about being first generation, I was first generation as well.
Were you as well? I'm not surprised.
Even where.
What year did your parents come to California?
Oh my gosh, back in '57.
Yeah, and where from?
From the Azorian Islands, San Miguel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys were talking about the high expectation of that first generation.
We sacrificed everything for your ass.
My parents were just happy if they got me to 21 without getting someone killed or killing myself. The expectation was a little lower for me.
So if Manny doesn't end up a criminal, we won.
We did good.
Yeah, well, I think that's actually true for a lot of families. I mean, come on.
Of course, they had, six other children that they seen through grade school, college, and so yeah. By the time they got to me, they were pretty tired. They're like, "Hey, yeah, yeah, take care of yourself, kid." No, I'm just kidding.
So, guys, if I'm I think regular working person today, and I'm hustling real hard in my life, and maybe I'm entrepreneurial, and maybe I'm a parent, or maybe I'm thinking of being a parent, or I'm trying to be one of these super people that has it all. And I know my physical well-being is important, and I also know, Manny, that I've read enough to know that quote unquote sitting is the new smoking, and being jammed into a cube, and bad posture, and I commute, and I'm a regular person in the regular modern world who has a commitment to being physically well. What are the first sort of things that you think I should know?
I think the first thing and this is what I try to share with my clients as well, especially in the Silicon Valley, where people do have to commute, sitting at a computer for many hours at a time. It's a game of accumulation. Whether it's something unhealthy that the body has to be exposed to due to work, career change, career choice, or whether it's something good, exercise, movement. Our bodies are dynamic. We're made for movement. And, sitting at a desk for 12 hours a day, it's like taking a high performance, 911 Porsche and driving it around a school at 25 miles an hour. The car, after a while, doesn't like it, and it starts having problems because of it.
So why do you think, guys, we've created a world where we hardly ever use our bodies anymore? We like sit in our cars, and we sit in our houses, and we sit in our jobs, and
a lot of it is, I think, due to the level of quality that we have in our life. We're always very mesmerized with the idea of simplifying everything. 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, if you wanted some milk, you had to go get a cow out in a dairy, and we'll come in and wash its udders and then physically milk the cow.
Where the fuck were you living 30 years ago? Because 30 years ago, my mom went to the grocery store. Was it that bad in Los Banos?
Well, when you lived on a ranch.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
But yeah, maybe even 40 or 50
Yeah, because you grew up in a physical environment, right?
Right.
Yeah,
and
working the land.
I think society, they're always trying to improve their standard of life and simplify things. So the more we make things simplified, the less we have to do. So we don't have to move so much. We don't have to exercise or function so much because we have a lot of automation that does it for us. And I think the backlash of that is that our bodies are made for movement. Our hearts are healthier when we have constant and regular bouts of movement or exercise, right?
Yeah, haven't you said also that movement is medicine?
Yes. So, yeah, I think just getting people kind of back into that mode of.
But how do I do it if I'm that person working 60, 80 hours a week, and I've got all that stuff going on in my life, and I'm in an environment where I'm sitting down and I'm not that physically active? I mean, where do you suggest we start, guys?
I always start with a functional movement assessment. When a client comes in,
yep,
we talk about, okay, here are your muscle patterns and the things that are really tight on your body.
Is that an FMS test? Is that what you do, or you do your own version of it?
And we add a few of our own tests.
You do.
But the FMS is kind of like the base of that testing.
And why is it you're testing, my ability to touch my toes or my thoracic spine? And why do you start with movement?
Movement is it's the core of our body's ability to function. It's like a baseline of where our how our skeletal system is moving, because it's all held together by ligaments, tendons, and muscles. And if you have asymmetries or imbalances in that musculature system, it's kind of like the weak link on a chain. If you're going to have a problem, it's usually going to break at that weak link. So we always like to work on the preventative side of identify the weak link and shore that person up so that they don't end up having a problem. It's like avoiding or taking care of a problem before it ever has a chance to become a problem. Does that make sense? And it comes back to accumulation again. If you start doing things that accumulatively help the body with mobility and stability, and you do that on a semi-regular basis, you're going to start to offset a lot of the stresses and unhealthy patterns that can happen when you're accumulatively sitting at a desk for 8 or 10 hours a day, or sitting in a car commuting 4 hours a day. We're just offsetting that negative with a positive. Keiichiro?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think society and social norms have guided us in a certain direction, that outcome and performance and results are really the only thing that matters. But understanding and doing a little triage and understanding how to get there isn't in the critical path for a lot of these organizations. So who we like to work with to start are a lot of these startups that find themselves in a complete jam after their first 3 to 6 to 9 months of success, and they're asking themselves, well, how do I get from point A2 to A10? So I think it's really important to address wellness and well-being as a priority, and educate individuals that how important it is. From a preventative side, which Manny had mentioned, it's hugely important. And not only that, from an overall just behavioral patterning sense, once you get into a habit of allowing yourself to have the priority of wellness in your life, it's a lot harder to break that habit.
Now, you guys are also entrepreneurs together, and I'm holding in my hand is this the second generation, or what would you?
Yeah, that would be second generation. When I first started making these units 17 years ago, it was literally a Makita jigsaw.
So I mean, this is like, I call this my Manny drill. And we're going to call this the muscle blaster to recover faster. Is that what we're thinking? The muscle blaster. The
muscle blaster.
And so what needs to, and this is, I just love that you're the classic inventor, and the spinal tap saying there's a fine line between clever and stupid, right? It's just, what occurs to you to say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a fucking drill and I'm going to put a plastic knob on the top of it. And instead of massaging this person's horribly tight IT band, I'm going to attack it with this drill with this rubber ball on the top of it. When does that thought occur to you?
For me, it was more, I guess it was more based in research. I was always interested in how vibration and percussion would affect the body.
But let me slow down. Never once as a child, never once in my 20s, 30s, or 40s did I ever think, I wonder how percussion and vibration affects the body. That never occurred to me. So what was it about this notion of percussion or vibration as opposed to the human hand doing a traditional massage? Like, how do you even get from I'm going to rub somebody with my hands to I'm going to drill them?
Well, for me, it was almost from a necessity perspective. When I first started to work with a lot of professional athletes, I had a lot of athletes coming in on a referral basis. So I was doing up to sometimes 10 or 11 hours worth of deep tissue body work on some pretty big athletes, NFL football players, mostly football back in, we're going back about 16 years now, but and as a practitioner, that stress of pulling, pushing, elbow, I remember having repetitive motion injuries in my own like flexor attachment points from pushing on people so many hours a day, and repetitive motion injuries in my wrists and fingers. And I thought, I will never have longevity in this career if I don't do something about this. So
it's simply the fact that you're going to get your own carpal tunnel and your own
self-preservation.
So curing and helping others recover is going to make you sick or unhealthy.
That was part of it. And in my graduating class of therapists, 6 years out, there were only at 30 people that graduated, there were only 2 people that were still practicing. Everyone else had gotten out of the business because of repetitive motion injuries, ligamental issues, instability in their joints. So I just knew that as a practitioner and having
needed something else.
I needed some tools to help me do what I needed to do.
Yeah.
As an athlete, and even as someone that's focusing on their health and their wellness, it's really important as we get older too, to make sure that we allow our bodies to have some semblance of not only recovery, but have some semblance of rest and an ability to grow and have a breakthrough at the cellular level.
For sure.
And this percussion innovation is incredible. I mean, it's so obvious. It's like all legendary categories, right? You got this problem called I'm sore, I'm stiff, my muscles ache, or I need to get warmed up. I'm not stretched yet. I don't want to be brittle when I go paddle out, whatever it is, right? And so the minute you say, hey, wait a minute, if we take a battery-powered device and this thing goes how much faster than the human hand?
Well, this particular device will percuss at about 22 cycles per second. And a lot of research went into trying to find the right amount of cycles per second or hits per second, and how that particular hertz or cycles per second, how does that affect the nervous system? And so we wanted to optimize the relaxation of muscle tissue, the conversion of like lactic acid or any byproduct or waste material that was in the system. But we also wanted to engage or stimulate the fast twitch muscle fiber, because we ultimately wanted to have more punch and more power or strength, explosive strength coming from that muscle group as well. Well, this does it simultaneously. The breakdown from this gun breaks up the tissue so much more efficiently than what someone's hands can do. And we have static application, and then we have range of motion application, where someone is actually activating the muscle or shoulder girdle, and we're working into those muscles to help facilitate that release and relaxation, a good pump and breakup of any adhesions in and around muscles that they shouldn't have adhesions there, and also helping really stimulate good blood flow in and out of that area. We're also doing a reset on the nervous system. We want that nervous system to settle down, but when it kind of comes up completely online again, we want it to function at a healthier level, a more copious or natural electrical current that the body should be functioning at in that area. That helps remind the body just by stimulating it a lot and then letting it drop and relax and then letting it come back online over the course of maybe 20 minutes after the treatment. And it usually runs at a much, much more comfortable and natural level of current in that area.
It's an amazing feeling. I mean, I have wicked tight IT bands by way of example, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I drill my IT bands and all of a sudden I have the IT bands of a 17-year-old. And actually I think that's one of the most powerful things, because it's of course not just muscle recovery, it's connective tissue. And I mean, you guys know better than I do, but the blood flow into connective tissue is nowhere near as high as it is, and blood flow and the oxygenation that comes with it, you tell me, is a major contributor to the recovery of the muscle and or the connective tissue.
Yes.
And so if I have chronic IT band syndrome, which is essentially a giant tendon,
Mm-hmm.
how else do I get blood flow into it if I don't have percussion?
Yeah, you're definitely enhancing that component. Byproduct out, new healthy oxygen-rich, nutrients-rich blood in, and creating a conversion. Then you add a little hot and cold therapy to that, which kind of accentuates the overall component of healing as a home-based care program. And then you're talking now cutting your recovery time almost in half sometimes.
Yeah. And so do you guys find it, I don't know, I at least find it interesting, if not serendipitous, that here you guys are kind of healers. you focused on the corporate side, Manny focused on sort of putting together these different disciplines to help people recover from injury and perform better at sports, that here you are now at this stage of your lives and your careers, and you're now entrepreneurs bringing this percussion product to the world. Was that a surprise to you guys?
Well, it's not a surprise. I think everything, there's a good time for it. And I think in our market today, vibration and percussion has now, it's on center stage. There are a few people that have products out there that have brought an awareness to the benefit of what this type of therapy can do. So I, as a practitioner, and someone that's been making these products for over 17 years and has designed a whole methodology on how to use it, why to use it, when to use it, and when not to. I think it's about time now that people are hungry for something and they want to know more about it and they want to utilize it. Now I want to deliver. It's my responsibility to deliver something real to them.
And Manny, do you feel at all any level of vindication in that, look, this is kind of a wacky idea at first blush, right? And you've been working on this for 17 years, and now the world is finally ready for you, right? I'll never forget with our book, Play Bigger, I thought with the whole concept, the category design, I thought, all right, well, for 20 years, I've tried to get people to understand this, sometimes successfully, more times not. And I just thought, all right, well, I'm going to try one more time with this fucking book. And if more people than not don't get it this time, I don't know. I must be crazy. Like, do you know what I mean? That you're working on this thing that is a big part of, innovation that you think the world needs. Mm-hmm. But sometimes the world gets it and sometimes it doesn't. And then all of a sudden, like, finally the world gets it.
Yeah.
Is that how it feels for you?
It does in a lot of ways. I remember one of the individuals that I approached with this idea about 8 years ago, and he's a world-renowned pain management practitioner, teaches at Stanford Medical, and I came in.
What does he know?
I came into his office and I had, he gracefully and graciously made time to see me because we have a friend in common. And he looked at the device and the first words he uttered were, "Oh my God, it's a jigsaw. Are you kidding?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not. This is the only device that I could find that percusses at this level and has the amount of power behind it that I need that facilitates the kind of reaction I want in the tissue. And I can very effectively desensitize and help relieve trigger points." And now he has a very affluent practice in Los Gatos. He teaches at Stanford, and just for the sake of privacy, I'm not going to name his name because I didn't ask him if it was okay. So I will honor that. But I will say that he really had a problem with the fact that it was a jigsaw. But then I worked on his shoulders for a few times. And after 7 minutes of treatment, I said, "So what do you think?" And he goes, "It's freaking amazing. I have trigger points on my shoulders and my traps all the time. And that, I cannot believe the amount of relief I just experienced." And I said, "But he's like, you gotta do something about the fact that it's a jigsaw." And I said, "Well, let me ask you something. When someone unfortunately has to go into surgery for open heart, what do you think they open your chest with? It's a jigsaw. You never see it because you're awake. But if a heart surgeon can use a jigsaw, there's no reason why I can't."
Yeah, I love it. And at first you say, "Hey, I'm going to use this thing that's a saw or a drill or a hammer or a gun or whatever the fuck people call these things." But in reality, I call it my Manny drill. But as I was sharing with you guys a little earlier, my cocktail trick now, cocktail party trick is people come on over. I'm like, hey, come over here and let me drill your ass. And actually, I think you taught me that one, because the first time you used one of these percussion devices on my gluteus minimus, I couldn't believe it. I think you said something to me like, oh, well, you're not the first sore ass I've seen.
Yeah, one of my basic jokes that I always use is I apologize in advance for being a pain in the ass.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's really great for like a piriformis relief and release. It just works so quickly. It just kind of lulling down the nervous system and getting it to just let go. It's phenomenal.
And so the two of you guys are interesting cats, because on one hand, you're working on the leading edge of technology to help people recover.
Mm-hmm.
But on the corporate side, you're sort of working on the leading edge of corporate thinking about what it is to have an employee base who's physically and mentally, and I don't know, you tell me if spiritually matters, but in a, you used the term earlier, 360-degree way, healthy. And so I guess my question is, what's it like to be on the forefront of both sort of, if you will, personal recovery technology, if I could call it that, I don't know, you tell me, and then also this sort of new awakening almost, and there's this other topic that shows up in my life a lot, which is what's the role of a company beyond just profits, right? And whether it's providing an opportunity to do meaningful work or the role the company should play in the broader community, not just with its own employees. It seems to be a big topic in a world where we have, Volkswagen turns out to be a lying bunch of douchebags who lie for a decade about their emissions and then get caught, and Wells Fargo gets caught every 15 seconds for doing some horrible, nasty criminal thing to its customers. And, obviously we had the financial crisis a few years ago, almost 10 years ago now. And, so there's just a lot of discussion. Maybe it's just because we live in this part of the world, I don't know, but it just seems to be showing up a lot in my life. Like, what's the role of a company? And so I guess, what's it like to be kind of working on the leading edge of both the physical technologies to make people recover and also the new ways of thinking and acting at work?
Yeah, I think, going back to kind of social norms, we live in a different age where our kids aren't running around the backyard for 8 hours a day and we ring a bell and they come in for dinner, right? So what we have to do to kind of nurture that experience is very different. What we have to do as they grow up is going to be very different from what we did as we were growing up. And so from a corporation side, we like to start at the very beginning. So the startup level, the folks that are conceptualizing an idea and putting it into work and putting it into practice, developing a product where they don't think about anything except that. They spend, we were just talking about the fact that they were spending 27 hours, over the course of 2 days, staying up all night, working on this one thing, getting 1 hour sleep or maybe no sleep, and realizing that, I'll just rest for a minute and then get back into the same grind. It's not sustainable and it's not persevering. And I think a lot of these larger companies or more established companies are finding that in order to continue the ideation phases of their company, that especially the new ideas and the growth of their company, they have to keep their people. In order to keep their people, they have to have several different elements: a healthy culture, a place where their employees find their interactions purposeful and meaningful, that their ideas are not threatened upon, but they're relished, and that they have a freedom of understanding how they can go about solving a particular problem. And so in this particular device, if it shaves off their time to be able to go to a massage parlor or, a salon or a particular therapist, and they can learn some of these modalities on their own and become more educated themselves on how do I create a more sustainable body this kind of physical foundation so that I can be that performance engine in my organization. And that's what thrills me about this product.
I love it.
Excellent.
All right, boys. Well, I love what you're doing. I love that you're in Silicon Valley running around teaching all these big companies to how to get their employees to go to the gym and be healthy and move. And I love that after how many years has it been, Manny, on the percussion technology?
Oh my gosh. I made my first unit about 17 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just continued to plug away, and I'm really excited about looking at what that next chapter is and sharing it with the world. All of my clients love it. Now it's time to
Well,
step
fucking
it
A,
up.
I love it. And I'll tell you, every person that comes over, I drill them in the ass. And so I'm going to sell 1,000 of these things in the next couple of weeks.
I don't know if I could use you for marketing, though. The drilling in the ass, that's...
Well, I always love it when my buddies come over with their gals, their wives and stuff. It's like, yeah, hey, Jim, come over here, Cindy, while I drill your ass. Don't worry, Jim, it'll just be fine. I'm just going to... I will tell you one thing, all kidding aside. If you want to make a woman happy, take one of these Manny drills. These what are we going to call them? We're going to call them
Muscle blasters.
Muscle blaster.
To help you recover faster. This muscle blaster, and you massage the bottom of her foot with this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, that's a very happy woman right there. All right, guys. Anything else before we kick out of this wave?
Just wanted to say thank you, Christopher. I really appreciate your time.
You guys are awesome. I love you guys. Thank you for including me in your world. Thank you doing this today, and I love it. I love who you guys are in the world, and I know you're going to be even more successful going forward.
Thank you.
Bless you both.
Bless you.
Whew. What a joy to spend time with both those extraordinary men. If there's somebody in your life who would love this conversation, why not share with them right now? And we would love you a little bit extra if you went to legendsandlosers.com, checked out our brand new website, and subscribed. That way you would never miss any of the hilarity. All right. We would like to thank HarperCollins' instant classic Play Bigger, How Pirates, Dreamers, and Innovators Create and Dominate Markets, Equity Directory, connecting startups to the talent and resources they need to build a legendary business. NetSuite, #1 in cloud ERP. Check us out at netsuite.com. Verve Coffee, leaders in California artisan coffee in Santa Cruz, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Tokyo, and always at vervecoffee.com. PursuingResults.com. They produce legendary podcasts. If you want to get into podcasting, you want to talk to PursuingResults.com. Interview Valet, podcast interview marketing. If you're a thought leader, get your leading thoughts on some podcasts at interviewvalet.com. Spartan Up, the legendary must-subscribe podcast. This is an awesome podcast, particularly if you're somebody who's into sports and being physical in the world, with our friend and guest, Joe DeCina, the founder of the Spartan Race Company. Myo Technology, which is Manny Camara's business, world leaders in mixed method recovery in San Jose, California, and at myotechnology.com. The Front Row Factor, the awesome new book from our friend and guest on episode 61, the legendary John Vroman. Running Through Walls, the great podcast from our friends at Venrock Capital in the heart of Silicon Valley. Hal Elrod's amazing bestseller, The Miracle Morning. Fathom Marketing, delivering legendary marketing outcomes at fathomdelivers.com. And our good friends at Doctors Without Borders. You make a donation and we make a difference in the most challenging places on planet Earth. We would like to remind you that this oddcast is the sole property of the Legends and Losers Oddcast Network, and we would love you just a little extra if you shared the shit out of it right now. We need to remind you that today's information is provided to you solely for cross-functional purposes. In the event of boring, inauthentic business conversations, listen to 2 Legends and Losers and email us in the morning. We have to remind you as well that this podcast is produced in a studio that clearly does contain nuts, and Legends and Losers is never tested on GMOs. Remind yourself to always shower with a friend. Don't forget, the left lane is the passing lane. Listen to Tom Petty. Support your local athletes. Only fart in an elevator of 3 or more people. Thank you, Candy Dandy. Thanks, Mom and Dad. I love you. And hey, Colin, this oddcast really ties the room together, doesn't it? Today, our deepest apologies go out to Greg Clark, Chief Executive Officer of Symantec. Sorry, Greg, we just ran out of time for you. That's it, my friends. Be legendary, and we hope to see you again very soon on another episode of Legends at Losers.